You are listening to The Memory Keeper by Evan Vaile. Chapter 22.
The following morning, Reece Nylander looped his fingers through the wire of the tall cyclone fence and started climbing. On the other side of the fence was an indoor pool filled with people swimming laps. There were piles of clothes and towels and shoes on the spectator seats. Reece was still bare-chested and wearing his tattered trousers and black guards boots, a conspicuous sight in the harsh light of day. He clambered over the fence and hurried across the lawn to the building. The second door he tried was unlocked, and he slipped inside. Near the pool, he spied a pair of sneakers which looked about the right size, and some clothes. He grabbed them and darted out the door, unnoticed by the pool staff. In the shadow of the building, he changed into the new gear and discarded his trousers and boots. The shoes were a little too small and the shorts a little too big, but the wind cheater covered his shoulder wound nicely. The wallet in the wind cheater pocket was a welcome boon. He thumbed it open and counted the cash. Then he headed for the shopping mall further down the road. When he got there, he went straight to the food court and joined the queue at McDonald's. At that same moment, two uniformed police officers on patrol in the shopping centre were leaning over the handrail on the floor above. "Skinhead at 3 o'clock, the short officer grunted. His overweight partner turned and looked. From that vantage point, the ex-program inmate's shaved head was particularly conspicuous, and the officers had been specifically directed by their senior sergeant that morning to be on the alert for any young men or women with shaved heads. All such individuals were to have their identification checked, and any without were to be arrested and hustled down to the police station. "Don't ask me why," their senior sergeant had barked, "because that's all I've been told, so that's all I can tell you guys." And his orders also came with a warning. The skinheads might be hostile, so proceed with caution. "What do you think?" the short one asked. "Looks harmless," the fat officer replied. "Better check him, though." They proceeded down the escalator, their eyes never leaving Nylander's back. As they neared him, he turned toward them, munching on an apple pie and carrying a brown paper bag. The police officers caught his eye, and his chewing slowed for a second. "We'd like to have a word with you for a moment," the short one said. He looked the young man up and down. Reece glanced from Shorty to Fatso, thinking fast. "Sure," he replied. "We're performing a routine sweep of the mall," Shorty continued. "Could you show us some identification?" "Of course," Reece said. He put his meal down on a nearby table and reached for the wallet in his back pocket. When his hand disappeared behind his back, the officers looked at him sharply. "Easy, mate," the short policeman said. "Nice and slow, okay?" Reece made a face. "It's just my wallet, bro." He withdrew the stolen wallet and flipped it open. Shorty saw the license coming his way and took his eyes off the skinhead for just a second. In all truth, it wasn't Shorty's fault. He had to reach for the card, but Fatso should have kept his eyes on the suspect at all times. The moment Shorty's fingers touched the license, Reece put his foot into the man's chest and pushed. The policeman flew backward with a look of utter surprise on his face, which changed to an angry scowl in midair, which in turn changed to a grimace of pain when he thumped to the ground. Fatso reacted fast enough to make a half-hearted lunge at Reece, but the ex-program inmate was too quick for the likes of a beat cop. Reece sidestepped the attack, kneed the man in the chest until he wheezed like a 3-pack-a-day smoker, then swept his feet out from beneath him. The officer tumbled to the floor in a defensive ball. The crowd in the food court became silent, and there were a few shocked gasps. Mothers anxiously gathered their children and hurried them away. Reece wiped his hand over his face, grabbed his meal, and sprinted for the escalator. Just as he departed, he heard Shorty gasping for backup on a radio and the crackling reply that there were more officers en route. Shit and shit, he knew he had to get out of the mall. In here they could corner him. There were only so many corridors he could flee down to escape. He ran back the way he had come, but when he arrived at the automatic doors, he skidded to a halt. 2 cops were charging in his direction from the car park outside. He retreated and shot down another broad passageway, past music stores and pharmacies and hairdressing salons. Another descending escalator, and down he raced. At the bottom, he saw 2 more cops waiting for him with determined expressions on their faces. He took a flying leap over the handrail and landed heavily on the ascending escalator on the other side. The police trapped him again on level 2, and he raced into a department store, knocking over a display in his haste. Half a dozen cops tore in after him, and with no time to hide among the clothing aisles, he bolted for the first door he saw, an employees-only exit behind the lay-by counter. He vaulted the desk and wrenched the door open. The passageways were getting narrower. He tried to lock the door, but failed. The police charged in and were now only meters behind. If he still had his McDonald's meal, he would have thrown it at them. Shit, and triple shit. He managed to outdistance the cops down that passageway, but it was too late. At the next door, he was confronted by the same two officers who had approached him in the food court. Shorty and Fatso looked ropeable, and they tackled him to the ground with angry shouts. Then the 6 unhappy officers behind arrived, breathless, and put the boot into him for good measure. He was handcuffed and roughly pulled to his feet before being marched out of the mall. "Thought we wouldn't get you, didn't you, you cheeky bastard?" Fatso sneered in Reece's ear. "Just you pray my senior sergeant don't let me into your cell for 5 minutes. Then I'll show you what it means to fight." He was bundled into a police car. Shorty and Fatso hopped into the front seats, and Reece couldn't help but notice how the vehicle lurched to the left as Fatso heaved his lead butt in the passenger seat. When the car started moving, there was a grinding noise from the front wheel. "Hey, fatty," Reece said. "Lift your left ass cheek up. You're wrecking the tires of the car." Fatso turned around and pointed a threatening finger through the steel grille separating the front of the car from the back. "You better shut up, mate," he hissed, "or we'll stop this car and add a few bruises to your pretty face. Our senior sergeant ain't going to mind." Then Shorty spun the wheel and the police car roared out onto the highway, leaving the shopping mall far behind. Fatso had the radio in his hands. "Station, this is 122 over," he said. A hiss of static. "Go ahead, 122. "We're en route to the station with the suspect," Fatso said. "We'll be there in about 20 minutes. Over." The station acknowledged the information, and then a man who identified himself as the senior sergeant asked a few questions. Reece listened with one ear, surreptitiously testing the strength of the metal handcuffs on his wrists. There was no breaking them, and though he had a knowledge of picking locks, gained from the sole memory of a locksmith, there was no escaping from these chains. Shit, and triple shit again. Shorty stopped the car at a set of traffic lights and turned up the radio. The morning was heating up, and the officers had their windows wound all the way down. A truck rolled up beside the police car with a squeal from its brakes. Its engine rumbled loudly, belching out grey smoke from the exhaust at the rear of its trailer. Had the officers not been engrossed in their heated discussion about the cricket, they might have seen the old man wearing black gloves and sunglasses emerge from behind the truck. But as it was, only Reece noticed him walk toward the back of the car and draw a pistol from within his jacket. The old man stepped into the officer's field of view and calmly took aim at Fatso through the open window. Fatso barely had time to mumble, "What the?" before the old man squeezed the trigger. The silencer on the muzzle of the weapon made the shot sound no louder than a sneeze. The blast hit Fatso squarely in the neck, and he slumped forward onto the dashboard. Shorty panicked and scrambled for the door handle, but the old man adjusted his aim and shot the policeman before he got the door open. Reece watched the bodies of the officers with his gifted sight, and then looked back at the man with the gun. The old man's eyes were inscrutable behind his dark glasses. He peered at Reece through the car window. Then he reached into the vehicle and hooked his finger around the latch which unlocked the rear doors. Reece had already worked out who the old man was. He'd never seen the old coot before, but he knew someone who had. The nurse with the green eyes from the program. Her memories were fused with Reece's own, and she had seen the old man on several occasions, always wearing the security pass marked with the words Visitor 042. Reece vividly remembered what the nurse had told him before she died, trapped under the concrete block in the operating theatre. "If you find him, he will help you." It seemed the man had found him. Reece opened the door and stepped out. The old man's gun was still firmly in his hands, and its barrel never wavered from Reece's chest. Reece glanced back at the unmoving forms of Fatso and Shorty in the front of the car. He waited for the souls to rise and the memories to fall, but there were none. "They're not dead," Reece said. The old man inclined his head quizzically. "How do you know?" he asked. His voice was rough and gravely. Reece shrugged, then let his eyes fall to the weapon in the man's hands. The old man followed the young man's line of sight. "Relax, It's a tranquilizer gun. I'd introduce myself, but there's no time. I know who you are, Reece replied. In the program, they called you Visitor 42. The old man chuckled with genuine amusement and holstered the gun inside his jacket. The two men faced each other on the city street, the police car on one side and the truck on the other. I'll ask you later how you know that, the old man said. You can call me John Q. We don't have long, so I'll get straight to the point. I know you are Reece Nylander, and that you've been locked up in one way or another for most of your life. The authorities are everywhere, searching day and night for you and the rest of the program's inmates. I'm sure by now you know that. I can help you. I can take you somewhere safe, but we must go now. Why should I trust you? Reece asked. But he already did. Everything the dead nurse knew about the man she called Visitor 42 spoke in his favor. Because we both know you're running out of cards to play, John Q answered, and I can deal you a whole new hand. Reece nodded. Then let's go. I was getting bored with their conversation anyway, he said, looking down at the sleeping policeman. John Q had left his car idling on the other side of the truck. By the time he and Reece had hopped inside, the lights at the intersection had changed to green and the vehicles behind were honking their horns in irritation. Those people who witnessed the brief incident would later recall that a man wearing sunglasses and carrying a gun had fired several shots at the police and freed another man from the car. Reports would differ about the age of the man with the gun. Some would say he was in his late 30s, while others would swear he was at least 60 years old. Nobody heard what he said. Nobody saw where he went. The man just appeared on a busy city street in the middle of Melbourne, shot 2 police, liberated a prisoner, and then vanished into thin air. When will the cops wake up? Reece asked, settling into the passenger seat of John Q's sedan. After about an hour, the mysterious old man replied. Reece shook his head with a grin. They are going to be pissed. Say, have you got a key for these handcuffs? John Q kept his eyes on the road. No, he said. Reece studied the old man's profile. Have you got a key where we are going? Yes, John Q said simply. Reece waited for more information, but got only silence. So where are we going? He pressed. John Q glanced in his rear-view mirror and changed lanes. The vehicles behind looked innocuous, and as far as he could determine, nobody was following him. The daylight rescue of Nylander had been a rather risky venture and wasn't his style. But in the circumstances, he'd had little choice. I told you, he finally replied. Someplace safe. Someplace safe? Reece repeated, with raised eyebrows. That's right, he old coot replied. Reece waited for the old man to say more, but apparently no further information was forthcoming. What is it? Some kind of secret? You know, I'd feel a lot safer if you would tell me where we are going. What with me wearing these handcuffs and all? At least with the police, I knew I was going to the station. John Q zoomed through an intersection where the lights had just turned red. Reece opened the glove compartment and rummaged around, searching for anything interesting, ideally a key to the handcuffs. His actions drew no response from the old man, whose gaze never left the road or the rear-view mirror. You don't talk much, do you? Reece asked. There was the barest hint of a shrug. What would you like me to say? I don't know, Reece mused. Telling me how you found me would be a good start. When the police called in your arrest on the radio, I just happened to be listening, John Q explained. The police frequencies can be really quite interesting. It was fortunate for you they detailed your location. If you had have got to the station, I couldn't have helped you. Wahoo, lucky me, Reece said. Seeing as you're in such a talking mood right now, how about telling me who you are? John Q's face remained expressionless. Who I am is not important right now. Reece frowned. It's important to me. What's your name? John Q? What does the Q stand for? The wrinkles in the old man's face folded over one another as he smiled. Doesn't stand for anything, he muttered. John Q. Citizen. Sounded kind of silly. Reece thought about it for a moment. He could have sworn he'd heard that name before, on advertisements for credit cards or something. He turned back to the old man and said, That's a fake name, isn't it? There's no fooling you, kid, John Q grunted. Great, Reece exclaimed. I've been rescued by a geezer with a false name who is taking me to a secret place and who won't give me the keys to the handcuffs he might as well have put on me. For all I know, you could have been in charge of the program and are carting me straight back. Well, here's a newsflash for you, Pops. Your secret place isn't going to be a secret for much longer after I've seen how to get there. And I'm going to remember every freaking street we drive down. John Q casually raised his right hand to scratch his ear before reaching inside his jacket. You know what? He said, drawing the tranquilizer gun and pointing it at the noisy young upstart. He was surprisingly quick for an old bloke. You're right. Reece saw the gun a moment too late. Hey, he blurted. But by then, John Q had squeezed the trigger. Reece slumped forward against the tension of his seatbelt. John Q gently pushed him back into a more comfortable sleeping position and smiled to himself. Then he holstered his gun and returned his attention to the long drive northwest to his cabin in the wilderness.
That is the end of this chapter. To listen to the next chapter on YouTube or to purchase the digital ebook from Amazon, see the links in the description.